Hi, today I'm going to talk about Magna Carta and its influence in my life. Last month I went to England. I visited many places, cathedrals, libraries, museums. And one theme that kept repeating is Magna Carta, and it's not a coincidence because I was seeking, seeking it, I was looking for it. When I grew up with the story of Magna Carta. So, so I always thought of going to England and looking for it. So, for example, I went to Salisbury Cathedral. They have this one of the four original copies of Magna Carta. So I saw there, and there are other artifacts on display. They have a nice video about significance of Magna Carta, its relevance today. um, then I went to London, and there in the Temple Church, I listened to a absolutely fantastic talk by the dean there about the Temple Church and its role in framing, drafting, and promulgating the charter. And then I went to British Library and again saw another copy of Magna Carta and related documents. Let me first give you a little background of what is Magna Carta. Magna Carta is a certain clauses that King John in 1215 agreed to abide by to a group of barons. So what was happening is King John, who was the king of England at the time, and they themselves came from France. So in 1066, the Normans, who were basically French, invaded England, and King John was one of those guys. So by 1215, they were assimilated. They were British, basically. But King John had a big holding in France. So, and those possessions were threatened by the French king. So King John was fighting the French king to reclaim his possession. And he was losing the wars, and he was spending a lot of money. And he was raising money for those wars by taxing the British barons. And British barons were completely pissed to fund a war in a foreign country for their king, for whom they have no relevance, they have no interest in it. So finally they were pushed to the wall, and 25 of them grouped together and they rebelled, saying, we can't take it anymore. They went to the king and they surrounded the king, and then said, and they drafted this charter saying, the king has to agree to these clauses for his continuation as a king. John was completely enraged. He didn't want to give anything away. But he had no choice. He was completely surrounded by those barons, and he had no other records available, so he was forced to sign it. And he knew that, well, he will appeal to the Pope, and Pope will abrogate it. And that's exactly what happened. In 7 days after he got out there, he appealed to the Pope, and Pope said, no, this is not going to work. This was signed under duress, and John has divine authority, and the barons has no local standard. So the document was abrogated, and the situation went back to square one. But the barons were still not happy, and they were rebelling against the king. So they were trying to find another way of overthrowing the king. So they were allying with the French king. French king took the advantage of this. They invaded England, and a war was imminent. Showdown between John and the French king, along with the British barons. And then finally, John did the right thing. He died, leaving a 9-year-old son, the Edward, who will become Edward the Confessor later. And so now there's a dire situation for the royalists. They're the 9-year-old king, and all the barons are allied with the French, and there's a war imminent, and they almost certainly going to lose that war. And there are a few loyalist barons still left. One of them was William Marcel, and the royalist barons got together, and they made William Marcel the regent, who was essentially going to rule on behalf of the king. And William Marcel was a smart guy. The first thing he did was promulgated Magna Carta again. He said, now we're going to agree to Magna Carta on free will. So he promulgated the charter, and the barons saw that, okay, there is no more quarrel left. He agreed to all the conditions, so they switched side again. Of course, they're not going to fight for the French anymore. So in the war, the French lost, obviously, because all the barons switched sides. So anyway, then Magna Carta, all the charter became part of the British law. So that's how it came into force. And so that's the story of Magna Carta. And if you read the document, it's pretty boring. It's about trade and weights and measures. It's about who can fish when and how much a pint of beer should weigh, and so on and so forth. It's pretty boring. But in that boring document, there are few clauses, and that's the most interesting. And that's one of them is clause 29, which is the most important, in my opinion. The clause talks about that no free man can be arrested or taken prisoner without due process of law and a trial by a jury. And then there is clause 61, which says that if the king does not abide by all these clauses, the barons can take over the kingdom. So these are the essence of freedom that was first time ensured and enshrined in a document. See, kings since the earliest time, from the time of the pharaohs, or in India, time of Mauryas, Guptas, anywhere, in Babylon, everywhere, kings always ruled with divine authority, right? The kings were appointed kings by God, and they oftentimes bolstered that claim by claiming themselves to be a servant of God. So they will have a temple or a mosque and say, I am servant of God and I am protector of that shrine. So for example, the king of Saudi Arabia is called the protector of the two mosques, or king of Mewar is called the servant of Eklingji. His sword serves the Eklingji. His sovereign is Eklingji. So he is not answerable to anybody else, right? So they are only answerable to God, and their authority is given by divine power. So they're not supposed to answer to any earthly power or to their subjects. Sure, when they become king, they took all the oaths to protect the people, to uphold the law, and so on and so forth. But oftentimes they didn't, and when they didn't, there was no recourse available by his citizens, because, as I said, he's only answerable to God, and that answering can only happen when the king dies. In his lifetime, nothing can be done. Here's the first time in Magna Carta the king comes under the purview of law. The king is subjecting himself to the authority of the law, because he is now ruled by the charter, right? And it is not under duress, it is not under any compulsion, because William Marshall promulgated it voluntarily. So he made a contract between the subjects and the king. So king now saying, yes, I will collect taxes from you. Yes, I am your sovereign, but I am also giving you something back. This is a contract now, right? And that's as I said, that's the essence of liberty and individual freedom was born at that time, that you cannot be taken away just by arbitrary will of the sovereign against your will. Cannot be imprisoned, cannot be arrested, right? And that idea then got propagated in many different circumstances. And of course, when I go to Paris, we'll talk about Bastille, storming of Bastille, and French Revolution. That's a different direction. But during the American War of Independence, primarily, this was seized upon, that this idea that the sovereign rules with the consent of his subjects. So if you see coat of arms of Massachusetts, it's a militia man holding a sword in his hand and Magna Carta in his other hand. And that's, they said, and I have the honor of seeing the original copy of the American Declaration of Independence, and I have seen the hall where the Constitution was debated and signed in Philadelphia. So they completely took this idea. And if you read the Declaration of Independence, the main sentence there, that a government derives its just power from the consent of the governed, and that consent of the governed is enshrined in Magna Carta. So this forms kind of bedrock of my life. I mean, I feel that this liberty is the very basis of life. Without this, there is no life. If I am not sovereign of my own body and mind, and if I am ruled by arbitrary authority, then what's the point of living, right? So as I said, when I grew up, I completely was taken away by this idea, and I always dreamt about going to London and looking for these documents and all the related artifacts. So when I first time I went to England in 1996, the first thing I did to buy a copy of Magna Carta, and I came to India and I gave it to my friend Babai. And then every subsequent time I went to England, I looked for this. And when I go there, I breathe that freedom. And I believe that our freedom fighters, our revolutionaries, they also got the same idea when they used to go to England to study or for any other purpose. They got it, right? So they got it in their blood, same way I got it. Everybody gets it. And that way, see, I'm a very strong critic of colonialism, occupation by the British of India and everywhere else, their colonies and empire. But that does not mean I'm opposed to British. I'm not. I mean, every single people who fought for that liberty, for that freedom, is my hero. It can be William Marshall, or it can be George Washington, or it can be Subhash Chandra Bose. They're all same to me. And anybody who subjugates other people, who takes away that liberty, that could be East India Company or Benjamin Netanyahu. It's same to me. They are all same category. I will oppose them with all my heart and power. That is the basic principle of my life. And as I said, I keep loving going back to England because I want to breathe that freedom. I'm a poor man, but I just love that experience every time I go there. So I will keep going back there whenever I can. And I will finish this video with one anecdote. So in the 1940s, in 1939, 1940, the whole of Europe was occupied by Nazi Germany, and fascist Germany, right? And the very basis of freedom and was taken away. It was ruled by authority, by dictatorship. There was no consent, right? There was no democracy. And the British Isles were the few islands left in Europe who was fighting against that robbing of liberty. And they were about to be invaded. Hitler was planning an invasion of England. And Britain, ostensibly to save their national treasure, sent a original copy of Magna Carta to America for safekeeping. But that was a symbolism. England sent that document to America to tell America, look, this is the document on which you have founded your country. This is the document which is, in essence, defines what we are fighting for, this essence of liberty. And we are about to lose it, not just the document, but the people and the idea. And if you really care for it, because your country is founded upon it, You should come and rescue us. You should come and help us. And they did. And I'm getting goosebumps in me. And they did. America came to the rescue of Europe, and they rescued not only the land, but the idea. And we were not plunged into the abyss of fascism and Nazism. And that's the power of symbolism. That's the power of written words. Thanks for watching.